Wedding season is starting to wind down, and we have edited and culled a lot of images this summer. And I thought I would share with you our 10-step process of culling and editing our wedding images. So as wedding photographers, we take and edit and sort through so many images. Like, it's not uncommon for us to have, I don't know, like 10, 12,000 images that need to be sorted through at any given point during, a busy part of a wedding season. So far, this wedding season alone, we have processed around 70,000 or so images. And the system that we've put together, I think, works really well. It creates a really consistent look from the types of images that we choose to the final coloring and editing of the images. And I've been doing this since 2013. And so, every year I kind of tweak and change things. Before I start, I want to say two things. The first, there is something new that I added to editing this year that has been a complete game changer. So make sure you watch right to the end. I think it's the second last one. The second thing is, in an ideal world, you shouldn't really have to cull through that many images. But we don't live in that world, do we? We live in a world where we have digital cameras, and you have sometimes the ability, and for better or for worse, the tendency to take a few extra photos just to make sure you have the right one. And so because of that, having a good structure of how to cull and sort through your images is really important. So I would say, first of all, if you don't implement the system that I'm talking about, make sure you create a system for yourself, because you can waste a lot of time if you don't actually have a plan when you have to wade through so many images. The first step is that we do a positive selection first culling. And we use just the 1-star select in Adobe Lightroom for this. And why I say positive selection is that I find for myself, it is so much easier to select a photo that I like rather than to select the photos that I don't like, especially at the beginning process. I think you sort through photos a lot faster when, as you're going through the images, you're selecting the ones you want to keep and just not selecting the ones that you don't want to keep. I've found over the years of doing this that it's a lot more just mentally tiring when you say, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. There's just something even mentally helpful when you're only positively selecting images rather than saying, like, I want to get rid of these. So I actually don't get rid of photos until later on in this process. And this is a very generous round where I'm really only selecting images that are like usable. Like if there's any use at all, I'm gonna select it and not be too fussy about like, oh, should I keep this one or keep this one? I'm gonna keep lots of photos in this round. It's just a good way to pretty much just like take the axe and cut a bunch of these images off. The second step is, we just call it our second culling, and it's very simple. We hit 2 stars for this. And usually for this round, if I've done the first round, Allie, who is my wife and business partner, she's gonna do the second round. And we find when it's just like someone else with a when someone has a fresh pair of eyes on it, it makes it a lot easier. If you don't have a second person, I would suggest waiting a day or two before you go into your second round. I just find you get a lot of fatigue when you start looking at the same images over and over again. So giving yourself at least 24 hours to kind of reset before you start culling again can be really helpful. The third step is maybe where we're gonna get into some controversy about, I'm probably gonna get some comments about like how I can't believe you do it this way. Some of the steps don't make complete sense, but they do work for us. And the third step, so this is where we apply our preset that we have created over the years to our images, and we just select the beginning and the end and boom, paste the whole preset on there. It does not include the white balance because we shoot with our white balance very close to what it needs to be, and that's part of a later process. So we apply the preset to the whole gallery, and then I also do a batch exposure editing at this point. So I just go through the library module on Lightroom at this point, and I do batch exposure edits. So if there's any parts of the day where I overexposed or underexposed, purposely or not purposely, this is where I adjust that just to get it up to the right level. Now, I understand that I'm spending some time here putting presets and changing the exposure on images that are possibly, not just possibly, they will probably not be part of the final delivery. The reason I do this is for fresh eyes. And that's really important to me throughout this whole process, that I feel fresh and that I feel excited about selecting these images. Image selection for large galleries like this, like wedding photography, like even family photos or engagement sessions, when you do a delivery with more than like just 5 or 10 images, it's really important that you don't get lazy on your image selection. Because it's really easy to do that. It's tiring, it's exhausting when you're going through hundreds of images. And if you give yourself these little ways to have fresh new excitement when you're going in and looking through images, I think it's really, really helpful in your final product. So that is why we put the preset on there, we get the exposures right, and it feels very exciting. It's like, ooh, okay, things are coming together, but I still need to cull some images down. Our fourth step is a third culling round. This is where you're gonna get brutal. You're gonna you got the family photos, you gotta make sure you get the one family photo with everyone's eyes open. You're choosing between the multiple images to get them down to really just like the perfect one that you're looking for. And at this point, we're getting pretty close to our final number. We also do cropping at this stage. We actually crop our images down from the original ratio that we shoot on our Nikon cameras, and we crop that down to match the ratio of our film scans that are shot on our Contax 645. So we've done that third culling, we've cropped our images. Now we are halfway through our process. We are at step 5, and that is we start putting in our film scans. We put them in order of the whole gallery. So the next time we look through the gallery, we're gonna have our digital and film scans all in order through the whole gallery and all cropped at the same ratio. And this is where, the final pieces are coming together. It's getting very exciting, and the product is almost finished. Step 6, we're finally editing our images. This is where major photo editing happens. We'll go through one image at a time to make sure our tint is correct, our white balance, our exposure, sharpness, shadows, all of those things are to perfection. I've added something in this year that is a complete game changer. And you may laugh at me because maybe you just have been doing this for years and I just came across this idea. I started to use a color reference image. Like, where has this been all my life? There's a way that you can do it in Lightroom, and it's called just like a reference image. But I found that I wanted more than one image, and I think this was maybe the game changer for me. What I did was I put together a bunch of common skin tones that we're editing for, the colors that I'm looking for, the right type of white balance, the right tint, and I put together several different images to be like the reference image, like the editing reference image. And what I do is I put it on one side of my screen, and I have Lightroom on my other side of my screen. And as I'm going through and editing my images, I can look at the specific skin tones and be like, okay, is this too green or is this too magenta? And I can, as I'm editing each image, I'm referencing it to what our style, reference images are. And that way, as you're editing photo after photo, gallery after gallery, you have this beautifully consistent coloring throughout like your entire galleries. Like, Your eyes can trick you. I always thought, oh, if I just have like a white or gray, surrounding to my image, I can see I'll be able to see if the white balance is off or if the tint is off. But I found that often I was off, and often my eyes, I would go back the next day and be like, oh my goodness, everyone's skin is like green. But having this reference image tool beside Lightroom as you edit just helps your eyes readjust every time you're going through different section of images. Step 7 is, once I have gone through all of the images, I wait at least 24 hours before I do any more. And this is when I just do a final image check. I go through the whole gallery again and just tweak the images to make sure they are at least where I think they should be at this point. Step number 8 is we do the final cull. This is the only negative selection culling that we do throughout our whole process. So this is where we actually go through and say, not that photo, not that photo, not that photo, not that photo. And we usually do this together just because sometimes we both have opinions about photos that we want in or we don't want in. And so we find doing this collaboratively, both Ali and I, we find is the best scenario for us. We go through the entire gallery, making sure everything is looking perfect and that neither of us missed anything through all of these steps so far. Step 9 is we export our images, but we do not export them to the physical hard drive yet to send to our client. We export them to our online gallery first of all, but we don't send it yet, which is why we have step number 10, and that is doing our final color corrections from our online gallery. Now, maybe I'm just crazy, but I feel as the images are so different when they're exported and they're in JPEG format, and then they're uploaded, to your online gallery, whatever you use. So what I do is, after I've uploaded it to our online gallery, it has all the images in there and it has white all around it. And for whatever reason, when I look at it on that online gallery, there is image tweaks that I need to do. And they're normally either, oh, this photo's too dark, this photo's too light, or, this is tinted too orange, this is too much green in it. And so this is a really important step for us to have the images perfectly cohesive. And so what I do is, after I've exported it to our online gallery, I will go through just 3 images at a time to make sure everything works perfectly together. And then I will make those adjustments in Lightroom and then re-upload everything to the online gallery, and then finally export it, for our hard drive to send it to our couple. So that is the 10-step process that we do. If you have some tips, I'm totally open to tips. I am totally open to updating my own process. So if there's something that you're like, Luke, are you kidding me? You don't do this? Let me know in the comments if there's something that we have just missed all of these years. I'd love to hear what you're doing in your editing. And if there's any of these that you thought oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't do that. Let me know if there's one that you're gonna add to your culling and editing photo process. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. I'm really excited about the slowing down of this fall season, which means I have more time for YouTube and more time for making videos. So make sure you like this video and subscribe, because there is going to be a lot more of this content coming your way. And now that I've done this video, I can go to step 6 on the gallery I'm working on right now. All right, have a good night.